Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP. Here, we know House of the Dragon, and I am your host, Taran Armstrong. A bit struck by a dragon, perhaps a little under the weather, but I am here to talk about the finale of season 2 of House of the Dragon, and of course, with me is Grace. How you doing, Grace?
I'm doing great. I thought a finale that was excellent. I'm excited to break it down with you, Taryn. A lot happened, and also I think people are going to be upset that not enough happened. So I don't agree with them, Taryn, but I think that's going to be the sentiment. So we shall see.
Certainly, yes. I think, all season long, it's kind of been like, all right, some people have been saying this is good, but where's the stuff? Some people have been saying this is not so good, and where's the stuff? And we got here, and I can't help but think that the headline story of tonight is where was that stuff?
Yeah, a lot of seeds. I mean, the season they wrote out person sneaks into other side to try and not go to war, try to end the war. At least is the two try to stop more war or to end the war. Many times this season, I felt like at the end montage, I was like, oh yeah, come on, I can't wait for it to come back in 2 years. And I know that sounds really silly, but that is legitimately the way I felt. I thought it was a very, very good finale. But I think people will be like, I really thought we'd get another dragon fight. We didn't get a dragon fight. So what can you do? It's a show called House of the Dragon, Taryn. People want dragons.
Yeah, and I think, I'll go back to our discussion last week where I really said that I think the biggest issue that this season faces is that it feels like it's not delivering on the promise of the first season. And if the promise of the first season hadn't been so deliberately angled toward, hey, there's going to be war, like wait until they face the wrath of Rhaenyra. I think there wouldn't have been quite as much expectation here, um, because I think that if I take a broader view of the season and the story as a whole, I understand what they're doing with this season, and in a lot of ways, I like it. But watching in real time, especially week to week, and knowing the realities of waiting 2 years for this season and probably 2 more years for the next season, I feel like those realities were not really taken into account when writing this season.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like that's we talked a lot at the end of season 1 being like it's going to be so weird when they come back because like we're just basically going to like go to war. And then the show was like not so fast. Maybe a little, but not really. And I think that does make sense. I do feel like having read all of Fire and Blood, I think like when I was reading Fire and Blood and we get past sort of like Aegon's conquest stuff, and I'm like, and then realized that like that was not the show I was going to watch. I was like, oh no. But then as I read through Fire and Blood, the sections that are this, I'm like, oh, I kind of see where this is like really meaty to get into a show. But then even with an HBO budget, even with like, and the world now where it's not a show that comes back every year, television, like there's, we're kind of delighted by the shows like The Bear. There's some others that are just like, oh, it's here like every year. How strange. Like what a surprise. That, yeah, we're going to wait another 2 years. I think that's a little tough. I think I'm bought in to this whole thing. I think, but I think if people are not, that's also totally fair that like this felt like it's maybe not giving exactly. And I think your point was it last week where you were like, if they just didn't end season 1 with like, I'm so mad and I'm going to fight everybody and kill everybody, and then have a full season of basically figuring out how Rhaenyra is basically eventually does actually kind of get to that point. Um, maybe a little better, but maybe not. Maybe people will just feel like it's never enough. I don't know. But I think there's a lot to get into, Taryn, in this episode that I really liked. So
Certainly a lot to get into. And yeah, I feel like I do think that ultimately this was not constructed well enough in terms of it being a finale, it being sort of this story of or a self-contained season. I personally feel like This is the kind of season that on a rewatch, if you are watching, say, by the time season 3 is out, maybe even season 4, who knows? You're watching this season in succession, you're watching in a binge, I think it's gonna play a lot better, but that doesn't mean that it didn't fail, I think, in some significant ways, here, right now. I'm not probably as perturbed as most, but I definitely can see where I think they probably could have done a lot better.
Yeah, Samantha in the chat has this great comment. I think it's like sums up. I liked the episode, but hated that it was the finale. And I think that's like totally fair and probably where I think a lot of people like I think it's hard to dismiss that there weren't really great scenes in here, but it is a very strange finale. I can
Mhm.
definitely agree with that.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about this finale because we start where we left off pretty much. I mean, we technically start in Essos, but we'll get there. Uh Rhaenyra has some new dragons, some new dragon riders. And right away we're seeing the reality of what Jace was mad about, which is that Ulf is just like, "Hey, we're like the same now, bro." And he's like, "This is exactly what I was thinking was gonna happen. You suck. I'm not like you."
I kinda love this, I kind of, like, in universe I hate that, like, Jace is so immediately right. Well, Ulf, man, I think, almost immediately, whatever, like, fun aspect Ulf had to his character, maybe people are still on board. This guy is gonna be extremely disliked for 2 years while we wait for the news. Like, roughing, rustling? What does he do? I'm Tyson Apostles will get mad at me. He's ruffling or rustling Jace's hair, which is very black. Um, this is pretty funny that immediately Jace is like, "Oh man, they suck so much." He was trying a little bit to be like, "Bro, it's fine. He's never even like he's not fancy at all. Don't worry about it." Not great for Jace's view of how this will all turn out. Now that they have some commoners riding dragons.
Yeah. I feel like for a guy that we've seen be so diplomatic, we really see the less diplomatic side of Jace here just immediately like lord being such a lord, you know?
Yeah. Hmm.
I'll have you hanged. Show respect.
Um, Yeah, I mean, it's just so far throughout the show, I feel like Jace has got a pretty good, like, his edit's pretty good in terms of like he went to the twins, he got the river crossing pass, he got the deal with the veil done, like there's a lot of things right. And then when he like butts head with Nira, it turns out maybe he was actually right the whole time that we shouldn't have let off Red Dragon. But also, they now have way more dragons on the other side. And so on the other hand, maybe they'll just win the war because they have a bunch more dragons. Yeah, I like that they have 2 days to learn all the things they need to do before they're gonna go, and fight all over the 7 kingdoms. They're really just gonna spread them thin across Westeros, Taran. She's like, "Let's go. Let's use them immediately."
Yeah, I mean, what do you really need to learn? You kinda let the dragon do everything, no?
Yeah, I feel
You're
like the
gonna put
bond.
Helaena on a dragon, like
That's true, that's true. But she's ridden before. Rhaenyra just says she doesn't, like, really, like, have a taste for it. She doesn't really like it. Um,
I mean, I
but
wouldn't either. I feel like it's
you
just
don't think
holding
you.
on
Yeah.
for your life, you
Mhm.
know? What else do you need to learn?
The commands, the
Dracarys.
Valyrian. That's the dangerous one. Don't just immediately say Jakara's. You burn your breath weapon, your fire breathing immediately. It's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the plan. The plan is to organize. She does have a conversation with Corlys about like what should we do? And she's like, "Well, I'd hoped that this would be a deterrent." And while I'm not fully on board with the people that are frustrated with Rhaenyra's hesitancy to action. Um, I did feel like this conversation was a little much. I think it was here for like Corlys to convince her otherwise, but like, what does she mean by this exactly? Like, if this is supposed to be a deterrent to what? Like that now Aemond is just gonna surrender? Like I'm confused about what she thought would happen as a deterrent.
Um, I mean, I think she just is underestimating Aemond, whereas everybody else is like, no, that man's a complete psychopath. Like this will not
Like, we
work
got a bunch
at
more
all.
dragons now, so you're just gonna give up and die? Like, because that's what's gonna happen. She says it to Alicent, like, they're gonna have to die. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna die instead of fighting anymore. What do you mean? Of course, there's not gonna just give up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that this maybe doesn't hold as much logic as it probably should and needs to. The scene definitely is like basically like, hey, I got a new name for the ship. Actually, named after changed the name. It's actually named after my wife now. And to basically give us a smidgen of plot expose, which is basically like, okay, Aemon, like basically like there are other dragons and maybe just like slightly be worried about them. Like basically like, yeah, we don't know really anything about there, but like he does have a dragon, and like Helaena could ride a dragon if she wanted to, maybe. And then also to be like, and also they're marching all over, the country. Like the Lannisters and the High Towers are marching. And you should probably just go act on that instead of and to a degree I do feel like yes, Rhaenyra should be like, they're absolutely not going to surrender. um and almost one thing I wish maybe happened sooner is like, eh, like involving something to do with Mr. or being like, how do we win over like, and maybe even Rhaenyra like rebutting Corlys with this to a degree, and them having an argument over this, which is like, it actually doesn't matter about like Aemond and Aegon, any of the people who are like actually in charge. You just, if you can convince the small folk to like not let that happen, but maybe that's dangerous on your end to like, basically they've already done this, but so dissent. But yeah, this scene is a little weird, but overall it's basically just be like, here's a bunch of information.
Yeah, it's,
So
it was definitely it was one of the first times where I felt genuinely like, okay, there is something a little off here in terms of the voicing of especially the word deterrent. I get that these are metaphors for nuclear weapons and whatnot, but like uh it just stood out to me. And I mean, it's a good point too about the Helena thing. I'm curious because I'm not entirely sure if you did not read the books. Is this your first time hearing that Helena has a dragon?
I definitely think that's possible. Yeah,
At the
can't
very
fact check
least,
that at all right now,
I would
but yeah.
imagine there's a good amount of people that if they had heard before, did not remember until this moment, which was the point of it, I would imagine.
Oh, there's so much stuff in here where like sometimes I'm like, there's so much stuff they have to seed in all the time. Every once in a while, there's just a scene where they'll be like, and this thing is also has happened before. Like, okay, yeah, like Darren gets mentioned of like Otto being like, I shall go visit your other son. It's like, all right, bye. Like there's a lot of stuff that just like has to just like, something they just choose. We'll drop it in here. We'll just get, we got to put it in somewhere. So
It's weird how like this season felt like it was taking its time and yet there were still parts that felt so rushed. And this was one of them for me. The amount of times that we are like, and also, did you know that we had 3 dragons in the basement? And one of them is the second biggest dragon. His name is Vermithor.
uh,
And then in the next episode, they're like, "And did you know that Helena had a dragon? And
that's
that
right.
one's also really big from the days of Aegon the Conqueror." Um, and so on and so forth.
And book readers are like, yay, they mentioned it. Like non-book readers are like, wait, what? That's there's a lot happening in the show. It's a very complete world, Taran.
Yeah. So there's another player here too. Did you know? It's
Another
Daemon.
dragon. Oh yeah, damn it. Yeah, that's right.
Daemon and Harrenhal. For a second, I was like, "What other dragon?" And are they talking about the sheep stealer? Uh,
hmm Do you know there actually are two other dragons that have not been mentioned on the show? So I'll just say that. I'll just say that. So
you can just
you know,
probably assume there's always more dragons until there's not.
yeah.
So, so we head over to Harrenhal, where like what was it? Alfred? Uh,
Alfred Broom, yeah, Sir Alfred Broom. He's here to clean up the mess, Taran. He's
he's
here to
finally there, and
he's very
like
tall.
it took
Mhm.
forever to get there. She sent him away. It felt like episode 5 or something.
Very tough thing, I think, happening this season of, like, they do not like, they just don't really have time to invest or care about, like, Alfred Broom traveling, but there's no indication of how far or how slow or quickly it takes people to get places because they just have to be in the place they need them to be, which is a little. And I feel like that's the thing that was like so good about Game of Thrones, like when like the Hound and Arya like on the road for forever, but it's just it's just the way the show is laid out. Yeah, it did take Alfred Broom a long time to get over there.
So correct me if I'm wrong. The
Mm-hmm.
plan from Rhaenyra was
Yeah.
to send Sir Misogyny
Mm-hmm.
to Daemon,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that he would be like, "Hey, we really gonna let this girl rule?" And then it was actually a test for Damon to see if he would accept it because she knew that the creepy ghost butler from Harrenhal was actually sending her messages and gonna spy on it and let her know if Damon fell for the trap.
I guess.
That
um,
was my understanding.
I I I I I mean, the only thing I think I don't really like, I don't know that I which way I almost like want the story to be is like, is this like the Tyrion Lannister, like tell everybody the secret and then see if the secret gets back to you, and then that he like I don't know that she sent Broom to be like, hey, should we get rid of the queen? Like, should we do that? But it does feel bad to send this guy, like, it seems so like because the opposite is just as bad to send the guy who's like, I think you should just hang out and not make any decisions, and maybe you're a woman, so you don't know how to rule, to go and, like, meet with her husband, uncle, who's very clearly wanted to be king forever. So, either one isn't a good look, I think, on Rhaenyra, and I don't think it's a particularly, like, strong story, but, yeah, Sir Simon Strong is like, uh-oh, Rhaenyra, you better come on your dragon and see. And yeah, she comes and sees, and Daemon has a dream. What'd you think of this? This was like, this is a bunch of stuff. This is a bunch of we saw Daenerys Targaryen on the show tonight, Taran. Um,
We saw her back at least.
we did see her back. Yeah. What'd you make of this dream sequence scene?
I thought it was really cool. I do have to pretend that it's entirely about the books and not the show, though,
Yeah, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then
Pretend
it's
the end of
cool.
Game of Thrones didn't happen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, man, that's pretty dangerous that stuff is coming, and it's not gonna be pretty easily handled by anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows how it's gonna be handled? It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be
Yeah.
actually tough."
Yeah. Yeah, lots of stuff in there. Dany and her dragons, three-eyed raven, White Walkers, lots of blood and dead people and a dead dragon, I think I saw in there. It's a lot of stuff. I did think it was really cool. I like the like tree bleeding on his hand. I liked that. I thought that was really cool. And this is what like basically convinces him like, oh man, Viserys was so right. Rhaenyra should be queen. And then he bends the knee, and all the rivermen do too.
Yeah, so I think this was my least favorite part of it, and I get what they're doing here. That this is sort of like the culmination of what they've already been building, and that he wasn't ready to see this until now because he already has changed. But it still kind of comes off as he wouldn't have bent the knee if not for this vision, and that this vision is the thing that changes him. And I don't know if that's really how I would have preferred it to be. Like, oh, because I've seen a prophecy now, I get it. In the same way that I don't love it being used as justification for Rhaenyra's conquering, I don't love it as justification or as like an explanation for Daemon's loyalty. I think I would have preferred him bend the knee first and then perhaps have a vision. Or I don't know, just not portrayed in the way it was. But I do think it was a cool vision, and I think it's interesting. I think it does pay off a lot of the setup that we've seen. It helps sort of tie in all of the Harrenhal stuff a bit more, and, what I will say is that I hope this is not the end of it. I hope that it was not all in favor of changing Daemon so that he's going to bend the knee and that's it. If that's the case, then it's dead to me. I hate it. If this is the beginning of
Mhm.
more weird, freaky Daemon visiony stuff, that's important to me because if they did all this just so he'd bend the knee, even though he had already bent the knee, that's a problem for me.
That's interesting to switch it to be like he's already basically there. It does feel like a finale moment that shouldn't have happened in the finale. You know what I mean? Like it's like it is the type of thing that I do think will get people talking and thinking over the next. Like there's so much to go back and like look into. Like even immediately, I was like checking to see if that the guy who has the splotch on his face, like is that the three-eyed raven, which I from my research indicates it is, if you know who that is. So like, and then the White Walker, I do think a missed opportunity to give us the scene immediately where Daemon like wakes up and Alice is also there was a goat. We said there was a goat man in this episode. There was a full on goat man. Did you see goat man? Full
Uh,
subtitle said uh antlered antlered goat human figure or something. We got this show got
Wait,
really weird.
does that have something to do with the guy that was supposed to get the sheep and then there were pigs instead?
I
Does that have something to
I
do
think
with Goat
that's
Man?
I think that's fully I don't know. No, I don't know. I think that was totally like
Was
fun
that
war
just a
logistics.
reference to the other dragon with the sheep?
Yeah, there's an antlered man who like runs behind the tree, scurries behind the tree, and I'm like, I don't think we've seen that in Game of Thrones. I would be very excited to learn more about that. Um,
It's
but I
very
also
children of the foresty.
very, very, very. So at the moment that when he wakes up and he's just like, okay, so like the skeleton snow guys, like yeah, White Walkers, like having to go through like and that thing that would have been very fun to see like Damon like talking through it all. But I I agree with you, I think, and also I just thought the scene was so fun and so good. The like that thing and I think probably I'm like very happy for Damon to just be like, you know, on Team Rhaenyra. And so, you know, it's fine. But
I'm with
yeah.
you, I just wish it didn't feel like getting back to where we had been, if that makes sense.
Mhm. I like the convo between the two of them of she's like, if you ever leave me again, like do so at your peril. And he's like, hey, I tried. I tried to leave you. Speaking in Valyrian in front of everybody, him like rousing up the crowd. Yeah, I mean, it feels very much like where we've been. Because I think part of what I thought we were going through and going to was like this version where Daemon has changed and he returns, and not that we can't still get this, but that nobody can actually believe he has changed. And I feel like that would be like extra powered by visionary like Damon's visions. Really thought it was interesting that he sees Helaena too, which we can talk about. But this world where like Daemon is like, I am changed, and nobody he has done so much bad stuff that nobody can believe he's changed, and that being a frustration point for him, I think could be interesting that we don't really get so far. It's just basically like he gets taken back. But really after that, the only other scene we see is him like looking out right at the army. Yeah, that's it. So I think there's a lot of potential with the Daemon stuff still.
It was weird that Helena showed up.
She did show up in his dream, but she's
It's
a
like
she's a dream seer too. Maybe that was like we haven't really seen that, right? Them in each other's dreams. I don't think like people, not them, not those two specifically, like people in each
yeah,
other's dreams,
just didn't seem very mad at him for, you know, killing her
killing her son.
son.
That's true. That is true. Hmm.
It felt like she would have been a little bit like, "Oh, hey, it's
Hey,
you." That wasn't very
just disc.
nice, you
No,
know?
she seemed fine. I can't
She
remember
just
what
could
she
have said
said
that
to
to
him.
Aemond. She was like, "Hey, Aemond, it wasn't very nice that you burned our brother." Or, yeah, that
My
wasn't
husband,
very nice that
brother,
you did
husband.
that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, So we've got an army now from Daemon. He's on board. He's gonna be fighting the people. And now it's time to head back and get everything ready for the invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
then knock knock. There's
Is
a
this
guest. We've got a guest at the door.
I also like that. I mean, I guess like the third one or whatever was like Rhaenyra as Septa Rhaenyra or whatever. But I liked it that like when Rhaenyra, she had to be like cloaked up and she had to wear a secret thing. And this time Alicent just is like, I'm here. It's just like in regular clothes. It's just a meeting, which is exactly what I said about the last one. Is like just have it be like a war council or whatever. Like who cares if it's not in the book that they didn't talk to each other? Because again, I think that like although when I see it happen and like the Kingsguard is like, here's Alicent, and she walks in, I'm like, ugh, so annoying. And then the scene happens. I'm like, what a tremendous scene between these two actresses who clearly they know they have chemistry together. They know they can like deliver the dialogue of the show and the themes of the show, and they'll deliver a great scene. So they did it so many times this season. And then I'm like, but why did you do it like that? Why did you do it? Why'd you set it up that way? Because the scene is actually great. It's really great, Taran, I thought.
I I tried really hard to like be in that scene and feel those emotions, and I just
Mm-hmm.
I found a lot of trouble getting there. I felt like I couldn't connect to where Alicent was. I couldn't really connect to where Rhaenyra was. Um this whole plot line between the two of them just still hasn't landed for me. I feel like there's a better place to have this kind of conversation. And and I just I don't know, it just didn't work for me. This was the part of the episode that worked for me the least. Obviously, I was not a fan of the previous, situation either. Um, it just didn't emotionally resonate, and I feel like it was entirely there for emotional resonation because logically and plot-wise, I'm not sure how much it makes sense. I don't know, it was I just, I love both of these actors. I thought they were giving great performances, it just didn't work for me.
I There's actually a thing here that I thought. So there was a trailer earlier this week that I think Mari sent me like a breakdown of like and really as a book reader we were both kind of being like, how is this stuff happening in a way that I then think by the end of the episode I was like, oh, I think that actually works as a book reader. Um, and this scene is part of it of like Alicent basically being like, listen, you can just go with your dragon and take over the red keep. You can just do that and that will end the war. And I just want to not be trapped in in this. I actually think this is really great character development because I think that there is a way in which typically a character like this actually just gets like further embedded in the belief system that she's built for herself, which is like, I thought if I would just do what everyone would say, they will then suddenly realize I'm actually smart and I don't mean this like that they would realize that I actually have things to contribute and that I can be helpful in this situation. And what they ultimately do is like she ends up in a situation, yes, of her own making, but where like she is dismissed from the council and she has to like she can't do the things that she wants to do. Like this is what she's saying that like she just wants to like be free, walk where she pleases and breathe the open air. And so I like that she's like, being like, let me, she sort of offers up like, I will just leave with Helaena and go somewhere. And when and trying to sort of fight for the thing that I think they both have that has been so core to their characters, which is if this happens, like our children will die. Like if we go, but like then if I relent, like my children will die and your children won't die, right? Like I think that has always been that's been so strong, I think, throughout this whole thing of like that's where Otto is like, if you let Rhaenyra have any hint of power, she will have to kill your children. And so Alicent trying to like see if there's a way to not basically have that happen, and then realizing like we are so past that like, okay, can I have one of my children? Can I take one? And Rhaenyra like knowing that basically she has to do what she has to do now. It's so late. Everything has been set in motion. Um, I don't know. It worked for me. Again, I think like how we got here, silly. I don't like it. I don't like how we got here, but I do like the content in it, and I think it makes it's super interesting for moving forward. That Alicent is sort of in this thing where you would expect the whole time, like that neither of these two women, who are basically like they're the poster people for the show, Taryn. Like I think someone earlier this week I heard someone else say like this is not like Rhaenyra and Aegon on this is Rhaenyra and Alicent who get put on the posters as like the representative of each of their side. That this is basically Alicent like surrendering. Um, while still trying to maybe hold on to something. I don't know. I liked it, but you're welcome not to like it, Taryn.
I mean, my concern is that this was just like we couldn't do anything else with Allison, so we had to do this because it was something. And I don't know. It just felt it just didn't resonate. And then the idea that like Rhaenyra's like, nah, but you're gonna have to let me kill your son. Sorry. And she's like, oh, all right then.
Yeah, I mean, okay, fair. I mean, because there is the world where it's just like, why wouldn't Allison just like try to leave? Why does like, I mean, she did last week, but like, why did you just leave with Helaena? Like, what's the worst?
This is literally what Larys did.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, Taryn, and sometimes I do feel this way, that I feel like the show is trying to be so faithful to the book that every once in a while I'm like, you could have, you've been so good. You could have a little treat. You could do something else. You don't have to do it the way, because there is a thing where I think, and this is kind of a George R. R. Martin ish problem, although this show I think is sort of like bucking the trend a little bit, but like there is sometimes like I think the complaint of this type of stuff is like setting it in a fantasy period, but like having it be medieval times, basically. Not that and so then have to play by some of those rules in a way that like I was thinking about this when we get to the stuff in Essos, in the way that like basically having a trans character on the show can only be as like part of like the weird, Essos cult, because he's placed himself in a certain time period in which like in the book, and it's the way it's recounted, is that like these women have no agency or authority, or they're evil, or power hungry or whatever. And so because like nothing at this moment is really happening with Alice in the book, the show is trying to do something that I'm like, you could have just done something that doesn't feel, because like in a way this is in line with the book, but in a way that I think like isn't completely working. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but
I mean, it's outright said, which I thought was a little on the nose, like the history books will remember you as like
a
whatever.
villain, yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
cruel
like,
villain or whatever, yeah.
all right. I mean, we see what you're doing. Like it's
Uh,
okay.
uh-huh.
It just didn't work for me. I wanted it to. I really wanted it to. I felt like I tried really hard to make it work. It didn't really work. I'm hoping that once again it's the kind of thing where it's like, maybe it puts these characters in an interesting place by the next season, and that's interesting, and I can connect with them afterward. But I feel like the through line for these characters has been broken irreparably for me, and I just have to sort of, or at least their relationship, and I think I just have to kind of take it as it is or as it will be at the start of the next season and kind of go from there.
We'll see.
But we will see. Um, Speaking of what's happening over there in King's Landing, um, one of the reasons why Alicent is so desperate to get out is that Aemond is very clearly he's losing it. And we started the episode, and this was another mistake I feel the episode made, is that we kind of at the start of the episode, near the beginning of the episode, we cut to Aemond on his dragon on Vhagar, and there's like a whole little city being on fire below him. It's
Sharp
like,
point. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh, did he do this? Is it? And then later, it's kind of explained. Yeah, he did that. And I just kind of feel like in an episode where there wasn't really any action, if we had started this episode with Aemond like rampaging a city, uh, in anger, I feel like it would have given a lot more weight to this, a weight that I feel it didn't have, and given us a little bit of action, a little bit of blood to sate ourselves with a little here. I feel like give us some of this.
Well, there was no time in the runtime of the episode, Taran. You have to imagine. Um, I agree. I continually think that Aemon's story is so much of tell and don't show. Of be like Aemon watching a thing, and then the rest of the episode is like that guy burned a whole city. It's like
Like,
okay,
sorry, but briefly, like
no, you're good.
like his temper tantrum about the other people getting dragons was burning a whole city down
Mm-hmm.
and also grabbing Helena's arm.
Mm-hmm.
And the grabbing of Helena's arm is the one that we felt the most. Like, that's
Right.
kinda weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, because I think and I think there's a little bit in the show too of like, we've joked a lot that like the show really is like, it's so funny that the marketing was, all must choose. And then it's like Rhaenyra is so good and Aemon is so bad. That has been the story of this season.
Even
And then
Alicent chose the blacks.
even Alicent chose T Black. It's very, very good. Um, yeah, and so much of Aemond this episode, and it's just a bit because in the book Aemond is my favorite target. He's my favorite character. I think it's so interesting, and I just feel like this has been a little bit of a caricature to a degree, and like I think again like every choice I can see where where Ryan Condal is making these choices to be like, okay, yeah, like if he would go get Helaena to try and ride the dragon, then she would say she doesn't want to do it. On both sides, I think it was really interesting that there was a little bit of like when Rhaenyra is sitting at the table and she has gone through this like I must not kill civilians, and she's like, all right, so we're gonna go take over like Old Town and Lannisport, and they're like, and kill a bunch of innocent people. She's like, yes, and then it's exactly why Helena's like, I'm not gonna go kill innocent people, and then obviously Alicent like sticking up for her in a way that I felt like was probably the best example of the thing that this season is trying to do, which is that like everybody know Aemon's a wild card and he's bad and he's evil and Helaena must be protected. And like but again, I feel like the scene where he like grabs her arm and then Alicent is like, of anybody who must be protected. Like again, I feel like most of this stuff, I feel like the Greens have been far and away the most interesting side, but slowly the season that sort of like deteriorated a bit. Like there's a really great Criston Cole Gwaine scene, which we'll talk about, but like it's one scene. I feel like this scene where Aemon tries to grab Helaena to come ride Dreamfire and Alice is up for it is like a little. It's funny because I always think that I think I've made the same complaint that I feel like there's not enough this season, and yet they are doing it. They are doing these moments, and then I'm like, but it's not fully. For some reason, it doesn't feel fuller, and maybe it's because there's so in a regular show you'd get like 3 scenes of this or 4, and you'd be like, enough already. Like I get it. Whereas here, it's like the one scene we get in an hour and 15-minute episode or whatever the runtime was.
It felt shorter than that, to be honest. I don't know.
I think it was an hour 12. I think, and that could have been a big chunk too, though. At the beginning, that was like it was a really long previously on. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I skipped it, but
I also skipped it and I skipped the intro. Just saying.
me too. I gotta
Yeah.
give myself as much time after the episode to prep for the podcast.
Yeah.
It's I mean, for me, I feel like the runtime felt like it was like 65 minutes, roughly. But I could be off on that. in terms of actual episode time. But yeah, I mean, so we see this. I don't know exactly what Aemond thought was going to happen. He was just going to drag Helaena all the way through the castle to the dragon pit and then like shove her on the dragon or something. But yeah, he wants Helaena to ride her dragon, and she doesn't want to. And Alicent finally like stands up to him, and he stomps away. And then later he goes and he talks to her and he says again, like, sorry, but you're definitely gonna still have to ride that dragon. And she was like, no.
Or what? You'll burn me like you burn my brother husband?
Yeah.
I
He's like,
could.
no, I didn't. She's like, I saw it
And then she's like,
in
but
my
you won't
mind.
actually do it because I can see the future and you don't kill me. It's like, okay. I think that's very funny to be like, to be like, I actually can see the future and that won't change anything if you try to kill me. So
Also, like, where did this Helena come from? Because, you know, I feel like if she could have spoken with this much clarity, she could have been a little more descriptive than like, "Hey, what? I'm scared of the rats." You know what I mean?
or he stops singing or there's a beast beneath the boards. The fact that nobody on Team Green has figured out, especially knowing that Alicent should know that Viserys has literally had a vision about a prophecy, right? Try to like, or he just passed on the prophecy. I guess she doesn't know that he maybe. I guess he does. He say that he's seen. He's not. He hasn't seen anything. He just knows it's a prophecy.
Rhaenyra kind of pitched it as like, "Oh, he just really liked telling stories about Aegon the Conqueror."
Okay, still the fact that nobody has been like, I think Helaena might actually be able to see the future, and then try to capitalize and use that to the for the advantage of their side. It and like give me one moment of being like, that's witchcraft. Don't do that anymore. Like stop doing, stop saying things and doing, like give me something. But the fact that they're just like, she's like, I saw you burn Aegon. And he's like, weird. Like,
Like, "No, you didn't.
gotta. It's like very silly. It's very
That's
silly, but
treasonous."
yeah. So yeah, yeah. Very confident. I actually think that this is better. And again, I'm gonna just like quickly chat about the book. There's a way that Helena's portrayed in the book, and again, that could be like history writes women all the same way, but I do think that this is better than what I thought. I thought the like reaction when her son is killed and they're doing the procession march and she's like, I just felt so bad that like they have lost people too and we do not care about those losses in the way that they are supposed to care about my son dying. I thought it was just so interesting, and I just want so much more Helaena on the show. Like I think Helaena actually has potential to be right up there with like just honestly Alicent and Rhaenyra in terms of how interesting her story could be, and not just being sort of grieving mother. I think is good, but we just don't get enough Helaena all season. Like she's basically just like sometimes she's not in the entire episode, so then it is a surprise when she's like standing up to Aemon, right? Because I think it's like not what I expect, and I think it's a very interesting character choice, and she's just not in the show enough. I think.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think seeing an interaction between these two characters that I feel like have been mostly underserved. It was nice to see her standing up to him, but I feel like I again, I felt like I didn't have quite enough connection to like what their relationship is. I mean, have we even really seen them interact at
He said
all?
he would
What?
marry. He said he would have married her. That's
Last
it's like.
season.
No, I know. No, not really, I don't think.
Yeah, so it's just kinda like, for I mean, it's only 8 episodes, and I think they've done a lot in those 8 episodes. I really do. I think that the idea that the characters haven't developed or that the plot hasn't developed, I think is not true. I think that we have progressed quite a bit since the previous season, although some of it felt a little wheel spinny, like Damon in particular. Um but at the same time, it does still feel like we're missing chunks. And for me, it's characters like Helena and Aemond that are suffering the most. Um, and I think that this, whatever this was, was the result of that. I think it was good though. I think it was fine, like
And
most of their content.
I think so too. I think that the show suffers from the fact that it does need to be so big in scale and scope, and that's sort of a thing that I think people who are Game of Thrones fans like sort of flock to. The fact that these books are so heavily detailed, and George R. Martin has written so much about the history of the show that the show feels obligated in a sense to make it feel that big. But I was talking like a couple episodes ago where I think it was episode 6 because I think it had been it had been 2 since the battles, Rhaenys battle. And I make my notes and then I sort of like jot down like, okay, things that we could talk about. And I think I had like 20 odd things that I thought we could have like were scenes in the show that were distinct in terms of like, this is maybe it's the same two characters but it's different, or like it's this character and this character. And I think that like I have a hard time when I feel like I don't feel like I'm getting enough Aemond in the show, because I go back and I'm like, there definitely is enough stuff here, but this is a different show than you know basically it is so different in the sense that like I think in a lot of other shows we would totally condense the cast and we would be focusing in much more on these people, where like to a degree a couple of scenes have to tell us everything we need to know about like Aemond and Helaena, because we also have like 15 other named characters we have to like showcase, have a scene, talk about, whatever. And that's a mighty task for the show. So I feel like I'm like critical of the show, but I also acknowledge it's like this is a beast of a thing to try and like figure out how to adapt. So
It's epic fantasy for you.
it's epic fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, though, I think 2 characters that the show has done right by are Aegon and Larys. I think that this was such a cool scene between the 2 of them for me, where again I feel like they've portrayed Larys well enough to me that I read him right, that like he has both connected to Aegon on like a personal level, but also still is thinking strategically. And you can see that he has a vision for what they need to do. And you can also see that Aegon is not in line with that. Like that doesn't fit what Larys wants or what Larys sees. And he is still trying to like Aegon doesn't want to be Lars. He doesn't want to be a cripple, as he says. Um, but uh, but Lars is able to sort of talk him into the vision of what this could be, and convince him. And this is the best example, I think, of Lars actually being persuasive rather than us just being told that he's persuasive. And I really enjoyed that. And I think that like their scene fleeing King's Landing at the end of the episode was really, really fun for me. Like to see them together and to see like, oh wow, there's a whole other plot going on here. And that's very fun.
I totally agree. I think like there's a world where this story works for like any character of like somebody who you know, who got breathed by fire, who got breathed by dragon fire and is burned and almost, whatever. But the fact that he is the king is a person who not only is the king, but is the king in a way that like people sort of fought for him to be like, no, it actually has to be you. It's actually not your older sister. Like you are the ruler of the 7 kingdoms. Like by birthright, this is the thing that you need to be, and you will do. And there's a way in which like Loras can play into that while also knowing that Aegon has had this like dramatic fall, right? Like not just that he actually fell on his dragon, but like in stature, and that he, I'm someone who lives with a chronic, like I live with a two chronic diseases, 2 chronic illnesses, live with type 1 diabetes there's a moment where like I remember going very quickly to my an appointment very early on. And they were like, okay, so you did all the things we told you. Just do that for the rest of your life. And you're like, oh man, that sucks so much. That sucks. Like I thought kind of like I would get to do it and then it would be. And I feel like this is such an interesting dynamic in terms of like Aegon having been in this position of power, now being someone who is his life has changed dramatically forever in terms of like how he has to navigate the world, how he's perceived, all of that. And you're right, he does not want to be Larys, but also at the same time, Larys is the best tutor, the best mentor he can have to figure out how to navigate this. While Larys is also being like, and dude, you're gonna be the king once like Rhaenyra and Aemond, everyone kills each other. You'll just come back and you'll be the king. And the dynamic is so good. I think it's such an interesting and complex relationship. And I think that like they have probably spent each episode more time on this relationship than some of the others, but I also get that it's because it's so good, and it feels like in a moment where like Laura sneaks Aegon out to be a super like, what is that going to be like, you know, of them wherever they're headed? I think is so fun to like think about what that dynamic is going to be like. Is like Aegon was still bedridden basically by the end, but now is going to be like in off the side of the road. Like it's pretty fun, I think, in terms of what that could be.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought this is one of my favorite parts of the episode. There were a couple other parts though, and they felt a little out of place to me.
Okay. Yes.
I think the most out of place one was, and I'm gonna get this wrong, Rhaena, Bela,
Rhaena chasing the dragon, or
Rhaena.
Bela with Jace. I think you mean
Rhaena chasing the dragon.
Okay, Bela, who told her father she was fire and blood. Blood starts with a B. Bela is with Jace. She's fire and blood. Rhaena is in the mountains, and I'll think of an acronym to help us remember. A mnemonic
She's
device
also
for 2 years.
fire and blood though, because she's looking for this dragon.
Yeah, I know, but she's not the one who said it out loud.
This just felt so out of place to me to randomly cut to this. I'm so curious for people that didn't know where this was going, or I guess who haven't read the book and couldn't guess where this was going. Like, what did you think this was? Like, did you think this was her finding a dragon? Because I think you can probably get there from context, but like, I think you could also very easily not get there from context, where it's just like, wait, why is she alone again? She's by herself? She's like dying of thirst? Like, what is happening here? Why is she running through fields? Like, and then for the climax to be then she finds a dragon. It's cool, but they did just do that last episode.
Yeah, I don't know why this wasn't
times.
I don't know why this wasn't in the last episode. In the episode where everyone finds a dragon,
right?
And then Rhaena the next episode finds a dragon. I don't know why that wasn't like weaved
Why
in.
is it here? It's so strange. It's like, oh man, she's found a dragon. Is she gonna ride this dragon maybe and have another dragon? But that we already have a bunch more dragons. What's the point? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's so funny because I love this idea of like a kid who has like Targaryen birthright, right? Like her, you know, her sister has had a dragon. She does not have a dragon. They've mentioned in season 1, she so badly wanted a dragon. She wanted Vhagar, and Aemond comes in as a sneaky little bro and steals Vhagar, and so she doesn't have a dragon. And then she's like, I really want to ride a dragon. And they're like, well, you don't have a dragon. Could you actually just babysit these kids and actually just go like, that's what I need you to do? And I know you don't have a dragon, but like, you have another important job. Like and then she's like, actually there's a secret dragon out here that I'm going to go and get. Maybe that's a dragon. I love that. I just have found that, yeah, I don't get why it wasn't in last week's episode. And the amount of times, Taran, I went to go write in my notes. I was like, Rhaena in the mountains, and then nothing else happens, and I just like, okay, period, enter next next scene. Like, I think there's 3 scenes, and it's funny because I joke about like there's in a show where sometimes I'm like, oh, there's not enough happening with this character to tell us what's happening. This is the reverse problem where I'm like, I feel like this could have been so much less to get there, and it's just been sort of spaced out, I think, oddly. So she's chasing after a dragon in the Vale, and she seems to have found one.
Very oddly spaced. I feel like we've been just chilling in the Vale for at least half the season, if not more, with a bunch of just random scenes that never felt like they had a lot of direction, never felt like they went anywhere, that there were any real purpose to it. The Vale has not like, it's not like the Vale wasn't even part of the montage, you know, like what are we getting from them? What about the other heirs that she ditched? Like, what's going on there?
It is in the montage. Rhaena in the finding the dragons in the montage, I think, right?
No, her finding the dragon, but like the deal that they made with the Vale lady,
Yeah,
Like,
no,
where
that's
are her soldiers? Not in the montage as far as I can tell.
no, that's true.
Um,
No, they're not.
so, like, what was even the purpose of being there other than to perhaps find this stuff? So it's like, it just felt like it took so long to get there, and it never felt like from the second we were there, like, there was a purpose, and then to eventually, after all this time, after all this space, to find out the purpose is she finds a dragon right after 2 episodes in a row where other people found dragons. Feels like what it was what are we okay.
There's a whiteboard at the in Ryan Connell's office where it says like people sneak into the other side to have a conversation. It's like people and he just and I think people are like, we do that in every episode. He was like, no, what do you mean? And then they turn around, they've made the whole they made the whole season. It's like, oh, I didn't know it was supposed to happen every episode. Like I didn't want it to happen every episode, but every episode I said like someone finding a dragon, people sneaking into the other side. It's been a lot.
It
Themes,
was weird.
Aaron,
It
themes.
was weird.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, listen, maybe it'll be cool, that'll be fun, but it just felt a little weird. The other thing that felt out of place in this episode, it's actually I really liked this, actually. I really liked this little side plot they had going on. Just felt a little tonally felt a little weird and sort of plot-wise felt strange to be in this particular episode was the Mr. Lannister over in Essos, um, who is gonna like I mean this is like the plot of like a comedy like 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 this is the plot of like a Star Trek episode.
I mean, this stuff is great.
It's fun.
I cannot believe it like is introduced in the finale. Um
Right.
it's introduced in the finale because it's important in terms of like the next thing that like in the timeline it has to happen before seemingly I think what they have planned before the next season premiere. So it's like that's why it's here. Um I loved every moment, everything about this. I'm like so on board. I love it. Tough. Lohar, Captain Lohar, you know? Sharako, I believe is how it's pronounced. Lohar. It's very fun. This is like people assume because Abigail Thorne was cast in this role that it was like a gender flip thing. And then I feel like the show just did enough to just be like, have fun trying to figure out all of this gender. Have fun. Good luck, because they're given he him pronouns. It's like you have to send the captain. His men won't follow. If not, then you get this person who I think like is very gender ambiguous, is gender queer, is a trans like a trans woman. And then there's a scene where it's like Timon is like where she's like, I would like you to have my children. And he's like, so we will do he's like, yeah, you'll impregnate all my wives. Is so fun. Like it's this feels like it was made for me. I'm very excited by all of this. As I said, like before, this is very much like, okay, we have Essos, there's a person with the blue beard, which is like a lot. There's just full of the Essos is weird stuff, which this plays into. But I'm like, whatever. This is on HBO on Sunday night. Give
They're
it to
also
me. This
like
is great.
this is the Triarch. These are like the pirates of
Right.
Essos as well. They're not like supposed to be like the nobility or anything. Well, these are the
Well,
pirates at the very
these are
least.
the pirates. Yeah. So this was just super fun, and I feel like a thing that I'm like very happy that the show is doing. It's so strange that this is all introduced in the finale, but I'll take it. I guess I'll take it.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun. I thought the like impregnate my wives. How many wives do you have? Was it was like it was a great like bait and switch into a bait and switch. And I thought it was I did like I thought it was really good and really this is the kind of like introducing of a character that I want to see. I want to see that we are like given these kinds of introductions the same way that we got like Ulf and Hugh and Adam and Alan. And I like this. I want to see more of this stuff and less of the like leaving Aemond and Helaena sort of off the table. I like that we're setting this up. because it does add to that montage where we're seeing the two of them heading back to Westeros. It was like, oh, that's exciting. But I just feel like why not just like mix it in like an episode or two before? While it feels like it wouldn't have felt so out of place to everything else that's happening.
Don't we
And then
don't we
and
start
then
the
like
episode there? Am I not? Yeah, we start
yeah,
the episode there.
we do.
Yeah.
And then it feels like, stuff is developing over time. It takes a little while to get over to Essos and back. I feel like we could have been developing this, and then in the montage, them coming over, I think would have had a lot more weight to it. That like this is something that's been building for a while, and this is like important that these people have agreed to come. And so I think that to me, it just felt like just this also was like give this one the spacing of the Veil stuff, and then put the Veil all in one episode. And I feel like just swap those two around, and we're in much better shape.
In the episode where everybody gets a dragon.
Yes, and yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think again, they're doing so much. Yeah, it does feel like this is where they ended up putting it in. I don't really understand that, but I mean, this is a lot of the stuff I'm feeling from this episode. But it's like, was that a weird choice? Like, yeah, but I had fun. So, but I totally agree with you. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see.
we'll see.
Hmm.
There's two more kind of mostly random scenes, and I
Hmm.
thought they were both great. One is with Sir Criston Cole,
Oh yeah,
who is going to basically express his newfound nihilism for existence. That the dragons dance and we are but ash, or something along those lines.
that's exactly what it is.
Um,
Yeah, we are
so,
like dust under their feet. Yeah,
um, man, he's kind of depressed, huh?
he's a pretty sad boy. He's smelling Alicent's handkerchief though. The
He's
one
like
thing he's
talking about
not.
like she's the light that I beaconed to and leaned like, dude, you totally like betrayed her.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Are you
Um,
feeling remorse? Is that what's going on?
he's like, I have shame, Gwen. Don't worry about it. I have shame. I'm very shameful. Um, I like this so much. I liked, yeah, it's total nihilism, but it's like, this philosophy thing. He's like, perhaps all men are corrupt and true honor is a mist that melts in the morning. It's like, that is super bleak. And he's like, yeah, but we're all going to die by dragons. So who cares? This means nothing. Don't worry about it. We're just
I've
marching
never liked
towards
Kristen.
annihilation.
I've never liked Kristen Cole more, to be honest.
To die will be a kind of relief, don't you think? He asked Gwen. And Gwen's like,
I
yeah,
felt like I
probably.
felt like I was the same as Gwen. I was just like, all right,
Mhm.
I guess I don't want to slap you anymore. Like I guess I don't want to kill you anymore, Kristen Cole. You're just too pitiful at this point. And
Oh,
also, like low key, a poet.
I mean, it's probably Cole's future. I do like Gwen just being like, fine, fine. I think I was gonna kill you, but I think I'll just sit next to you and also be sad that we're gonna die by dragons. So, all right, I love this. I think this is the best example of so much of the theme of the show, which is like, there's so much about like just how dangerous dragons are, and Rhaenyra is basically the whole time being like, I don't want to kill people, I don't want to kill small folk. This is the reaction of all the Black Council. This to me, I think, is like, this is a person who has seen it firsthand. He saw it one time. He saw two dragons fight, and he was like, "Nope, that's so bad. I'm just gonna die." Like, it's I think it's some of the best stuff on the show. Fabian Finkel's doing some work here on
Yeah, this was
this.
very good from him.
The way it was
Um,
shot too, I thought was great.
mhm.
Yeah.
And then another very good performance by Father.
Father. Mhm.
Alyn of Hull, who is going to finally break when Corlys says, "I'm just trying to help." Like, excuse me, sir. Great little speech, great little monologue from him. Loved getting to see him sort of like flex his muscles a little bit. He's been very contained all season long. And I thought this was a lovely little scene.
This is so good because it's been so like Corlys has basically never like admitted it, but it's just like it's been here the whole time that basically like Corlys is his dad, and really Alyn is the one who's like, I really don't care. I'm shaving my head. I don't want anybody to know. I'll just do my job, and Adam being the one who's like, bro, we could like keep like that's our dad, and this seeing him explain why he does not care for Corlys to like, you know, um, approve of him or whatever is so good. And it comes with him being like, Corlys being like, yeah, like you could probably be a better people person. He's like, how dare you, you you heartless man. You would walk by with your kid. I didn't know if I like would have enough money to be warm in the winter, and you would walk by with your fur cloak to have like extra treats for dessert with your son, and they're all dead. And now because they're all dead, you want some sort of relationship with me. He says you wish to scatter the crumbs of your favor. He's like, I'm honorable. I'll serve you because I have to, but I do not need your help, man. This was really good. This is a really great performance. So happy for Father here. We are big fans of him from Raised by Wolves, a show that I think was like under the radar. That show was wild at times, but that very fun. And so happy that he gets to be on HBO. I believe that was a Max show, maybe Raised by Wolves. So on HBO proper, and he's killing it. This is great. This is so good.
Yeah, I love this, and it's again, this is like for as much as I will pick this episode apart and maybe pick the season apart to some degree, it is still very much, I think, one of the best shows on TV. And scenes like this are, I think, why. Very well written, very well performed, and even though I think again there are some missteps here and there, I think the biggest of which for me was the Alicent scene, and that's a shame too because she really does lay out everything that I believe to be true about her character. Like, I was following what was laid out before me. Like, I thought if I, adhered to these structures, that was like what I was supposed to do, and I would be essentially rewarded for it. But it almost felt like it was too stripped down, like it was like laying out the guts of this character too cleanly, especially to be in line with the decision that she made. But there's still so much that I liked about it, and I'm a sucker for montages at the ends of episodes and things. And I am excited to see where the rest of this show goes. I mean, I think any disappointment from my end, at least, and I would imagine it's true for most, at least some people as well. Like disappointment for not seeing as much of the stuff that we want stems from the fact that the stuff is good and we just want more of it. And luckily for us, at some point, the stuff is coming. So if it's delayed a little bit or if it's coming later or whatever, it's still coming. And so I'm excited for season 3. I'm excited for what lays in store for this show. I don't want to wait 2 years for it, but again, it is what it is for the reality of current television.
I think that's all true. Like it's true what you said. I really liked this season a lot. I love this season, and I loved many of these episodes. I love many of these moments, even when I don't like it. It's just because I literally think my complaint is like, oh, actually just want these episodes to be like 2 hours, and I want
Yeah.
so much more of Aemond. I want so much like that. That's basically what I want, and that's obviously
Most
like
people just want more of
yeah.
what we're getting.
Yeah, like people want 10 episode seasons. They want that's totally fair. It's so funny to be like, don't worry, there's more coming in a property that is written by George R. R. Martin. Like, don't worry, there's definitely more of this coming. Don't worry.
Well,
And I
yeah, I
know,
mean,
again, I know
we're
it's
not
true.
relying on him.
I know,
It's
but
already there.
I know, it's just very funny. I will say, HBO had a little trick up their sleeve tonight, Taran. And as soon as the episode was over, they released a trailer for Dunkin' Egg that comes out probably in a year from now. And it probably will be a 2025 release to sort of satiate us before House of the Dragon season 3. Like pretty smart. I think to
Yeah,
like obviously the Jon Snow stuff, like failure to launch. They have some things that they could do to like basically give us a bunch of Game of Thrones content all the time, to sort of be okay, I guess, ish with like the long wait times between the seasons. So
I can't wait for the cliffhanger at the end of Duncan Egg. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, we'll see. That probably will happen. So I like this episode. There's so much happening. The stuff that I liked a lot. My takeaway is like that's such a weird finale, but that's fine. I did like the montage of the like I actually felt like pretty viscerally excited about the end of the show, being like, is this going to be so fun when we come back? It's just a total bummer that that's 2 years, but that's such as life. That's the way television is made these days, Taran.
Hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
Is this season 2 of The Wire?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I feel like I shouldn't make any, because I was like coming into season 2, I was like, I know what we're gonna get. We're gonna get so many battles, so many wars, and they were like, no, that's not what we're getting. And the thing is, like, I think that like that actually logically makes a lot of sense. For there not being a lot of dragon fights, there was a lot of dragons in the show that I'm assuming are not super easy to CGI and make. And so I have no expectations for what season 3 will be and whether it will feel. I think the hard part is that this is a thing that I feel like it's so tough to say, because Game of Thrones is the ending is so bad that it's so funny to think of this show as a thing that like will be better upon totality of the thing being seen. Also, mostly because like there really isn't, I think, a conclusive place to be like, and that's where the story ends, which will like based on the book. So interesting. But I do think like this is a season. I think you're totally right, what you mentioned at the beginning, which is that when people have finished season 3, they're going to go back to season 2 and they're like, ooh, this thing in the middle of this episode actually is so important for like for episode 6 of season 3, and where all of the threads. And I think the themes are so strong of like people in power who are fighting the civil war, who actually are, to a degree, some of them thinking about who, there's a line in this episode, I think it's been said multiple times in previous episodes, who pays the price for this. I think that's what like the woman that Aemond's in the brothel with is saying, like, it is the small folk who pay the price when like royals go to war. The themes of this show are so strong that that makes me excited, but I also get where if people come away from this being like, feeling a little bit unsatisfied. But we're in the middle of the story. We're in the middle of the arc, Taran.
Yes. Well, season 2 of The Wire, famously, very different from season 1. Not what anybody really wanted from the show, but it turned out it was what everybody needed from the show. And actually one of my favorite seasons of The Wire. But I hated it at the time.
Is
I was
season
like,
2
this
the
is lame.
docks?
Yeah, it's the docks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The dock season. I think it's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, I like season 2, but I watched The Wire in a binge, so I watched all of it like so fast. So the having to like sit through and this is what you get, or like I don't know when you watch, but in terms of like if you do kind of do it of like or if it kind of like bums you out and you're like, I don't want to watch more, and then later maybe realizing it's great. But I had the thing of like, no, it's so great, and don't worry about season 2. And then I was like, oh, actually, like expectations, Taran. So hard because people will be like, this is bad, and then I watch it like, well, it wasn't that bad. I could see where some of it might be bad, but it wasn't that bad. So that was my watching the second season of The Wire. It was like, everyone told me it was bad. I don't think it's that bad, but I have to like watch it week to week, or I formed my opinion based on all the other opinions that came before it. So
well, I guess we will truly have to wait and see how history will remember not only Alicent, but season 2 of House of the Dragon. And perhaps how history will see our season 2 coverage of House of the Dragon here at We Know Scripted TV. Because that's it. That's it for season 2. But don't worry. We're not quite done yet.
Yeah, I mean, we did it halfway through the season, Taran, and I think we should do it again. We're gonna get Maester Mari to join us for another book club, which I'm very excited for. So similarly to how we've been we did those how you folks did them during season 1 coverage, and how we did the mid-season check-in, which is that like roughly halfway through the pod or so will only be, how the book and the show compare to the point that we get to in the book and the show. So no spoilers for the end of this whole thing, only sort of talking through changes, adaptations, things they did well, etc. And then you'll have sort of if you don't want to be spoiled for the future section, you'll have a little bit of an out, and we'll get to how we think they might where they might go from here in terms of season 3 and beyond, in terms of the content that's in the book that we have read, as well as Mari. So another book club this week, which is very exciting, Taran.
Very exciting.
I'm hoping you feel better by then. I'm hoping
It would be
your
great.
sickness will be gone. That would be really great. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully by then Larys will teach me how to be Taran the Radiant, Taran the Builder, Taran the Marvel of the city.
The realms, yeah.
The
The realms
realms, the
delight.
realms delight. That's what it was. I thought it was so cool that like
Yeah.
very clearly not what Larys was saying. Like he's not going to be the realms delight, but that's
No.
still what he wants. But
And it's funny because that's what his
closer.
sister was called. That's what she was called. He's like, I'll be
Mhm.
the realms delight. He's like, oh, buddy. Probably not, man. But sure, you're gonna get in the carriage. Okay, come on. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we also will continue our scripted TV coverage over on the Tastemakers, where we talk about what's on TV, what's playing in theaters, what's
Yeah.
worth watching, what's worth knowing. We talk about it all. The most recent episode, we did a spoiler episode where we normally do not have spoilers. But we talked about season 1 of Presumed Innocent, The Acolyte, The Boys. Uh, not all season 1s because The Boys was not,
Yeah.
but we talked about the latest season of each show, and that was very fun. And then next week we'll have more things to talk about, more shows that we're watching, and stuff like that. And of course, lots of stuff happening over on reality television with Big Brother that you can check out as well. And I'm always on Twitch hanging out, answering questions, stuff like that. But more to come, Grace.
Yeah, so Taran, you I think are going to well, we'll still do the tastemakers each week. We'll be perusing television, let people know. Your Sunday nights I think are going to be occupied with Big Brother again,
Mm.
if I'm correct. And many nights and days of the summer are actually for you filled with filled with Big Brother content. Um, HBO Sunday night. It's still a thing. And next week, they're premiering season 3 of their show Industry, which we'll be covering here on We Nash from T. Taran, you and I have something sort of in the hopper for something that you and I are going to cover later this summer. But I think sort of filling in for you in the co-host seat for our industry coverage will be the one and only Josh Wigler. I think
I
that
hear he knows nothing.
he does
Like
know.
a new addition to the show of Industry.
Yeah, Kit Harington joining the show. It's like, they wrap up House of the Dragon season. They're throwing Kit Harington. They've been putting him in all the commercials. There's this like Succession meets Euphoria vibe, I think, to Industry. I just finished the second season and thought it was a pretty tremendous end to the season. So I'm very excited to dive into season 3 with Josh each week. Jess, I think, will be around. She's been in the background here for our House of the Dragon coverage each week. So a little bit of a Succession PSR reunion coming up. Very excited. People should binge Industry and then join us each Sunday night for our recaps of Industry. I think it's a very fun show. I feel like everybody's been like, I don't actually understand what's going on in the show. Don't actually worry about that. I've been doing some research, but also the show I've learned does not care if you understand what they're actually talking about. They only care about how you feel, how the characters are feeling in that moment. So don't feel
It's
like,
just it's
yeah,
just a bunch of naked people doing
naked people
finance.
at night and during the day they're like money, stocks, trades, business, banks. That's basically how we're. And then at night they're like Sex and cocaine. That's what we do.
Yeah,
So,
the money
yeah.
and finance is just a fuel to get naked later.
It's
It's very
100%.
much what the
Yeah,
show is.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So, check that out. We will be having coverage here on RHAP every Sunday night. Josh and I will be together with Jess joining us as well to do industry. And then, yeah, Taran, we'll do the tastemakers. And then there's another property that I think people are going to be pretty excited about that I think you and I are going to try to delve into each episode. So we'll leave it at that as a teaser, I think, right?
Good point. All right. Well, stay tuned for all of it. Thank you all so much for joining us here throughout season 2 of House of the Dragon. It's been an interesting one. It's been a challenging one, and I think I'm pretty happy with what we've put together. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and that's about
Should I
it.
there's potential that there's another time other than book club that we might be getting together to do some House of the Dragon
Yeah.
special edition, because that might not be it. So keep a lookout in the feed. Keep subscribed to the feed, all of that good stuff, because you never know when a surprise pod will drop in your feed with some House of the Dragon coverage.
You caught
Just
me.
saying.
You caught me. I got more up my sleeves.
Just saying.
Uh-oh.
You have long sleeves.
I do.
I have short sleeves. Harder to get things in there, but yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us all season long. Stay tuned for more. And we'll see you next time.